Black Country Xtra, Songwriters Showcase, and it's sort of a follow-on from the last one we did on Songs and Stories with Dave, and the band was called
Taverner's Teapot.
Taverner's Teapot. And this enter band, it's my Bethel and Dave Nock, who was in Taverner's Teapot, and it's sort of another sort of, well, I never know what to call it. Is it jazz fusion? Is it improvisation? Is it free jazz?
It's an experimental project, I suppose, in a way.
Yeah.
We never quite know what's going to happen. It's a voyage of serendipity, if you like. We start things and see where they end up, see where they take us. A journey of sorts.
That's right. So it's more in the spirit of free improvisation.
Yeah. So explain to everybody out there what free improvisation is, because I know.
Yeah.
Mr. G, who come in last time, was just aghast at what's going on here.
Yeah.
So what is it, and then
first,
where are your journeys into it?
I'll tell you, we'll because it's probably different to different people.
Yeah,
so
well, it is.
If both of us give an explanation of what we think it means, it might go all around. There's probably two types of improvisation. There's improvisation within a genre, so within jazz, or within rock, or within Indian music or flamenco music. And then there's kind of genre, I should have said, not genre. But then there's genre-less kind of improvisation. And free improvisation is probably more in that kind of category. In other words, you're not constrained by anything, really.
Mm.
You're not constrained ultimately by any keys, any tonal centers, anything. You just do whatever you want. If you want to smash the guitar, then that's fine. if you want to bang it with a drumstick, that's also fine. So it really is completely free.
I suppose the goal, in a sense, is to try and get to that space that you can't get to by writing something.
Yeah.
You have these results that can't be written.
Yeah, quite. And it could never be composed it's very much the reason why I like it, because it's very much in the moment. It's about being totally present and in the moment, and allowing all your kind of all your kind of creative juices come flowing through, and all your past experience from being a musician, and all the hours you've practiced over the last couple of decades come flowing through, and meeting the moment by listening to what the other person's playing, and by being aware of the audience, and by even being aware of the room that you're in as well. Just everything to be.
So here's a contradiction then. So if it's improvisation, you got an album coming out.
Yeah.
So are the tracks on the album when you play them live totally different to the tracks that you've recorded?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
So who's going to buy the CD?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, the CD was just a nice moment that was caught, and I suppose it is antithetical to the idea that you kind of crystallise something like that, but it was a nice moment, and we thought it would be nice to share.
Yeah.
Because what we do, or what we used to do, we don't tend to do quite so much. When we were first starting off this little project, we used to meet in my little shed space studio and just record everything.
Yeah.
Just to see how we got on. And I think it was about the third or fourth time we did that. We recorded it anyway. And at the end of it, we thought, God, that was good.
Yeah.
And so I just mixed it on Cubase and put a little pixie dust on it, a bit of EQ'd it, and that kind of thought. And then we released it on Bandcamp a couple of weeks ago. And we think it sounds pretty good. I think it's got a nice kind of very open, spacey, zen-like quality to it,
So which I don't know, which box would you put it in, or you wouldn't you? The sort of very free ECM recordings, Paul Motion and stuff like that, Keith Jarrett, or would it be more Return to Forever and stuff?
Oh no, it wouldn't be in the jazz fusion thing. It'd be more in the ECM kind of part.
More Jarrett.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So where did you meet, and how did you start playing them?
Well, it's a funny story.
Yeah, it is.
Well, we're here for funny stories.
We met at a free improvisation festival at Claptrap in Stourbridge, and this was something that Richard Bruce Clay was putting on, and neither of us were playing, and we'd not met before, and I sat next to a mutual friend, Gary Corbett.
Oh yeah.
And Dave came and sat on the sofa next to me, and we were just chatting, and Dave said, you know, do you fancy doing one? Or you know, we're talking about playing guitar, and Gary introduced us both as guitar players, and Dave said, do you fancy doing one of these? You know, sorting out a set and seeing what we come up with. And I said, yeah, all right. I think it took us about a year to meet up again.
It did, yeah.
So is yours a similar journey musically wise then?
I'm a classical guitarist, really. I've done all kinds of things, and I've kind of dabbled as a folk singer, had a few records out. I'm playing with theatre groups and in various ensembles. So last night I was in Ellesmere Port with a theatre group, and I'm doing some trad jazz tonight with a saxophonist. But it's a very different kind of thing. It's almost like a meditational state, where you access this kind of relaxed sense of focus, this flow, and see what happens, and it can take you by surprise. So I'm very much enjoying the journey.
So it's a totally different discipline to classical music then, in a way, which is very disciplined.
Well, not so much, because traditionally in say the Baroque period there'd be plenty of improvisation, but that would be very structured improvisation, and this is completely, well, not completely unstructured, but you have to form your own structure to hang everything off. So it's, well, yes, it's completely different. Sorry, I've changed my mind. I agree with you after all.
There we are then. Shall we play the first track? This is the title track, so tell us about this then. Well, obviously it means nothing because you'll improvise it anyway.
Yeah.
But you've given it a title, so
exactly. I mean, in this approach, you kind of you don't think of a title first, and well, we haven't yet anyway. I suppose you could do it that way round. You could think of a title, Strawberries, and try and play like Strawberries, but we didn't do that. We just played, and then as I was mixing it, actually, the titles just come to my head, and I just asked Mike later if he was okay with them, and he said, yeah, that's fine. So the album was called The Listening Space. So the first track I just called Listen Space. Yeah.
So let's have a play, and then
So
we can have
just
some
an excerpt from
live
it.
stuff, shall we? Brilliant. Back on a very different songwriters showcase, because we've got some, I was just going to say avant-garde jazz then, but that's a bit...
It is a bit 60s though.
Yeah, it's a bit 60s. We're going past that. So who was the first jazz artist that you listened to a lot?
Oh, right, okay. First, I listened to a lot. I would be back in the 70s. I can tell you the Nat King Cole probably, because my dad had some Nat King Cole albums. And so when I first started, was old enough to kind of learn how to play the record player. He had some Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole albums, but it was just the kind of I don't know, just the noodling and the Nat King Cole albums that I liked, because there's just three of them.
Yeah.
And then as I got a bit older and more into pop music, I kind of got into Stevie Wonder and people like that. And then as I got a little bit older and started knowing a little bit more about music, I kind of realised that the chords Nat King Cole was using and in those great American songbooks were the same as what Stevie Wonder was using, but just in a different, soulful, rockier context, really. And so that's how I got into jazz through that. And then first of all, via soul music, and then I kind of, after that, a friend of mine introduced me to the jazz fusion thing that was just growing at the time, which was, because I was interested in guitar, would have been John McLaughlin and Chick Corea, and then Herbie Hancock and Miles Davis and all that kind of thing. So I got into it that way through the 70s jazz fusion, and then I subsequently discovered all the stuff before it, like Charlie Parker and John Coltrane and Thelonious Monk and all that.
Yeah, it's almost like you enter at a point, but then you have to go backwards,
And then I kind of stayed with it. So I was lucky enough to be around at the time when fusion was kind of invented, in a way. So I was able to stay with it after that and just follow as people like Pat Metheny were coming through, and Jan Garbarek were coming through, and the ECM stuff off the ECM label was coming through, and follow that. And of course Miles Davis had a rebirth in 1981 as well, and followed that, and then just got more and more into it. And as you get into that, you'll start to listen more into avant-garde, to use that phrase again, and free improvised stuff. Particularly initially John Coltrane, and then eventually people like Derek Bailey and AMM and Evan Parker, and there's some, and there was a great British tradition actually that started in the 60s and moved on into 70s of free improvised music, which was basically started by Derek Bailey in a way. I mean, you could probably argue that, but more or less. And it kind of kicked off from there. And in America, it started with the free jazz movement with Coltrane and Don Cherry and Albert Tyler and people like that. And then the two kind of nations met somewhere in the late 60s, and so I've kind of just
moved in. What about you?
Been into it since
Was yours slightly different? Or?
My entry point, I suppose, was through prog rock, which as a teenager I was hugely into. I was a big Pink Floyd fan and listening to loads of Yes, and through that, of course, I got into things like Mahavishnu Orchestra and Miles Davis, through John McLaughlin that way, and it's a chain. And I used to go to the library on the weekend, and this was when they had tapes that you could borrow and take home and have a listen to. So anything that looked interesting, I was listening to the ECM stuff and all the Blue Note recordings, and anything, you pick it up, have a look at the cover, have a look at the personnel, the track list and things, and take it home and see what it sounds like. And I did that for you. Well, I still do it to a certain extent. And
I'm one of them. When we used to get to the old Virgin Records in Corporation Street by the law courts, where you could just sit on the couch and listen all day. You'd just read all the. You'd pull an album, you'd read all the credits, and you go, "This has got to be good because he's on it. He wouldn't play on a bad album."
Yeah, they were great days, weren't they?
Oh, fantastic! Well, I think my first one. I used to go around my aunties because they had a record player, and Jeff was a folk singer and Ray was a blues singer. But his dad was a jazz bloke. But he used to have things like Music of the Mountains and things. And there was this, I think it was a Woolworths album, and it was this coloured guy playing this massive great big guitar. I says, "Who's that?" And he says, "Wes Montgomery." And he put it on. I just thought, wow, this is incredible. And it was on this poxy little Woolworths vinyl album. You wouldn't think, well, what's he doing on there? Do you have a live track? Yeah, what are you going to play?
We don't know.
Oh, right, okay.
Oh, well, that Wes Montgomery
reference. This could be Black Country Xtra too, isn't it?
I feel like playing it all with my thumb to get the Wes Montgomery sound.
We've kind of decided to play something bitonal for the first one, just because that's going to be probably different to what people may have heard. Which that means it's in two key centres.
Okay.
And we've chose A and F for no apparent reason. So everything we're going to play is going to be like a major third apart. So it's interesting.
Well, this is the process in a way that we decide on a particular kind of framework, and then after we've done it, Dave comes up with an amusing title, which might be, in this case, Bitonal AF.
Might be, hadn't it?
Yeah. Shall we play it?
Okay, you just go for it. great stuff. It sounds great. I can, folks who are listening to, I'm going, I wonder when I'm going to sing. Absolutely brilliant. Space Movement, is this excerpt 1?
Yeah, well, the second track on the album is called it's called Space Movement, and so it's like a 10-minute track, and so there's 2 excerpts from it that I've chosen for today. So this is the first excerpt.
Yeah,
from
and I suppose we better explain that the tracks on the album are much longer.
Oh yeah,
than
yeah.
These are like extracts from them.
Yeah,
aren't they?
each track on the album is 10 to 12 minutes, something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Here we go then. Here's the shortened version then.
Yeah.
Songwriter Showcase with the band that hasn't got a name, and we're playing some jazz fusion-y, improvised jazz. As the scene change, I mean, there's a big thing now about, well, the Xtra collection, you know,
right.
on the Mercury Project. You wouldn't have seen that 10 years ago.
No.
Has there been a bigger acceptance of that form of music, you know, over the last decade or so?
I can't really answer that, Billy. I have no idea, really. I'm not kind of in touch with what's current too much, really.
Well, I think that's
quite,
the
yeah.
issue in a sense,
Yeah.
that there isn't much in mainstream music to grab discerning listeners. So, but if people know where to find things, it's easy for them to go down rabbit holes and find particular things. So there's audiences for all kinds of things now, in a way that, well, even 10 years ago, you wouldn't have. So people are exploring all kinds of different avenues, I think.
And it's about, I mean, for this type of music, which isn't in the format of like a 3-minute single or something like that, and the notion of all these surveys that they do, well, the kids nowadays can't concentrate for more than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Is that like a negative thing with people trying to listen to your music, where you think, you know, you're going to dip in, dip out, and
probably.
not be able to concentrate for 10 minutes?
I probably, because to listen to improvised music, you got to stay with it. You know, you got to give it attention.
But then there's the history of those Indian concerts where they would play a raga for 20 odd hours, and people would fall asleep or go home and come back, and I rather like that idea. Shall we do one like that?
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I suppose in that period where George Harrison got involved with Ravi Shankar and that, it became very very current, didn't it? And then people like Roy Cooder started playing with anybody from around the world. It's just opened great new avenues.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you I suppose do you watch that sort of world music as well, and it influences you? Does it come into the music that you do?
I used to, you know, in my formative years, probably more so in the 90s, when I was in my 20s and my 30s, probably. I was just trying to kind of soak in as much music as I could. I don't, because I'm so kind of not obsessed, that's probably not the right word, but I'm so focused on my own music now, I suppose, more so, because I'm playing a lot and writing a lot and recording a lot and mastering a lot and making videos as well. And I don't actually listen to as much music as I probably ought to, but I did at one time. I used to soak it all in. I used to listen to anything I could, anything from all over the world. And because in those days there was no internet to do that, I used to have to go to Birmingham Library, and I'd get albums by sitar players and tabla players and Tibetan throat singers and all sorts of things, you know, anything you could think of, really. Japanese shakuhachi players and Chinese kind of mandolin players and everything. So I have done that. So I don't tend to do quite so much now.
What about does voice ever come into it, in terms of, obviously not words, but voice ever come into the stuff that you?
No, it doesn't.
Thoughts?
No, it doesn't. But I do like, there's certain singers I do like. I mean, I love Stevie Wonder, as I just mentioned, but I also love Van Morrison as well. I just think I was mad on Van Morrison from about 1978 till about 85. Again, I've lost a bit of touch with him, but during that 7-year period, I think I saw him twice a year. You know, I saw him about 14 times.
Well, I see him twice at the town hall and never turned round.
Yeah,
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt the first time, thinking, well, he might have a Monty on him tonight. And then I went the same time, and he did exactly the same. And then walked in. But he's a genius, isn't he?
Yeah.
Genius,
Great.
absolute genius.
Yeah. He had his moment. He definitely had his moment when he was, in my book anyway, he couldn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
for those.
And being a classical guitarist as well, do you keep your ball in both chords? Do you listen to, you know?
Well,
both?
there's commonalities between all of the sound worlds. You know, going back to world music as well. It's a spectrum, and you hear the same ideas all over the world, and in all of these camps. You know, you hear the pentatonics wherever you go, in Japan, and the form of Indian music is very similar to. It's common to sonata form in the classical music world, and it's a spectrum. So you hear all these things across all musics, I suppose.
Yeah, it really is universal, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you do listen to a lot, the more you listen to it, you can see the connections.
It's a bit like, I mean, I remember Graham Stanley's storytelling in Birmingham, and he said it's the same story wherever you go.
Yeah.
They just changed the place and the name, but it's the same story because the merchants used to tell them as they got off, you know, at the next port, which is fascinating. Shall we have another live piece?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
This one's called Strawberries.
Oh, right, okay.
Forever.
Okay, away you go.
strawberries.
No, not the ones I have. Not the ones I have. I was just sitting there thinking, the recording process. Do you both have to be there?
Yeah.
You know,
definitely.
I was going to say it's not like you. Well, I'll send you this, and can you put something on?
No.
It has to be. That's part and parcel of the rules.
Well,
With all of the stuff you do.
I never thought about it that way, but it would have to be because what I do next depends largely on what he's doing, and probably vice versa, and everything.
And wider than that as well. It depends on what any
Yeah.
audience is doing, and the feel of the room, the temperature, all sorts of things
Everything
feed into.
Everything comes into free improvisation.
And is it a one take or?
Yeah.
So
You,
it's
can,
no-
well, you could never.
Because you can't remember what.
You could never do it again.
No. I mean, it's so different, isn't it, to normal recording, for want of a better word, where they could do the same voice track 40 times.
Yeah,
couldn't
you
they?
couldn't. I think the word is organic, isn't it? It just grows out of the moment. It's totally organic.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't plan it.
Yeah.
Really.
No, I think it's fascinating. Next track, this is excerpt 2 in it.
From the second track, which is space movement or movement space, something like that. And yes, this is the second excerpt, which is about 2.5 minutes.
Great stuff. Here we go. Space movement, excerpt 2 from the new album, which is
The Listening Space.
The Listening Space, out on
Bandcamp.
On
Just
Bandcamp.
yeah, it's just on. I wish I could say CBS Records, but I can't.
out on all platforms. That's what they're saying now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Out on all platforms. So we're going to be slightly different now, because I was going to play the guitar, but you're going to be playing a drum. Tell us a bit of story about the drum before you start.
The drum. Well, I got interested in drumming when, as I said before, I started listening to world music, and I got interested in Indian music and African music, and I started. I think I talked about this last time I was on the show. Actually, started talking about. I went on a course to learn to do Tibetan overtone chant.
Oh yeah, like guttural singing. Yeah.
And what goes along nicely with that, as well as a drone, some kind of thing that creates a drone, is to bang in a drum. So I just got into kind of playing kind of these kind of African kind of drums that back in the 80s and the 90s you used to be able to pick up from Oxfam for about like 15 quid, but they're probably a bit more expensive now. It's a pretty good one. Look, it's real skin and everything else. I think it just costs 15 quid from
Beautiful bit.
from
They make
Oxfam.
fantastic sound.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
who was the bloke who used to play tablas all the time for people? It won't. No, it won't Hakim. I can't think of him now.
Oh, he's just died, hasn't he?
Yeah.
The one that's just died. Oh God.
Well, that's Zakir Hussain. isn't it?
Zakir Hussain.
Zakir Hussain,
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, there's probably a
Absolutely.
few more that I should know, but
Yeah.
Zakir Hussain. Yeah.
So over to you then. It's drum and guitar now. So fantastic.
Yeah, okay.
Great stuff. We're going to have a short break while we get the guitar back on. Well done, brilliant. Welcome back. So we're up to 2 guitars now, and we're going to get another live piece. So what are you going to play now then?
We're going to play something using the whole tone scale. Now the whole tone scale is kind of a man-made scale, really. It's just, it does what it says on the tin. The distance between every note is a whole tone. The only place in pop music I can ever remember it being used is on the intro to "You Are the Sunshine of My Life" by Stevie Wonder. When you get that kind of.
I'm going to be really. I'm going to use this now because when we're playing it, because we sometimes bust that, I'm going to say that we're starting this with the whole tone,
It's
and they'll go, "What do you want about?"
It's that bit.
Oh well.
You are the sunshine of my. That's the only time. There's probably more, but that's the only one I'm
You
aware
could be
of.
called the whole tones, couldn't you? No, it's just looking blankly. No, thank you.
So anyway, we're going to stay in that mode for 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, great stuff.
It never kind of resolves, so you have to kind of listen to it. All right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Short
The
and sweet.
variety is just incredible, isn't it? Absolutely
It
incredible.
is, isn't it? You don't have to keep playing in the same.
Does it
genre.
depend what mood you're in as well as to what you play? I mean,
Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if Mike comes in, you've got a Mardy on. Is it really aggressive or?
Yeah. I think the one's inner condition is part of it as well as just listening to the other people in the room, as we spoke about earlier. It does depend on one's inner condition as well, what we're thinking about, how you're feeling at the time. All these kind of things come into play. The complete human factor.
Yeah. Is there a point? I mean, you talked about. Is there a point where you don't really know what you're playing? You get into a zone where it becomes almost like
It's almost going through you in a sense, and you take yourself, your mental self out of it, and you're just in that flow state. I mean, without getting too esoteric, but it is a meditative state when it works,
Exactly.
and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, you it won't let you in, and you can't find the right approach. And
Can you sense when Mike, with it, or vice versa, and just think, well, this ain't working?
The listening, and to me, this is the way I perceive it. I mean, and other people might perceive it differently, but to me, the space seems to become palpable, seems to become substantial.
Yeah.
The silence is almost as real as anything else. Well, it is as real as anything else, obviously, but it just becomes as real as anything else. I'll tell you, the first time I really experienced that was when I saw Miles Davis at 1980. I just remember it. I saw it in 1985 at the Wembley Conference Centre. It was during the Tutu tour when he made that album Tutu. At the time, he was doing just a rock standard by Cyndi Lauper, Time After Time.
Oh yeah.
He was doing Time After Time, and he brought the entire band down so you could hardly hear anything, just a tinkle on the percussion, hardly anything on the bass. And he put the mute on his trumpet, and I think he even come away from the microphone, and there was like, I don't know, this is the way I kind of perceived it through my kind of musically idealistic romantic eyes. There was like a golden glow on the stage. There was just like silence on the stage, except it wasn't quite, because everybody was just listening to everybody else, and he was playing these really refined, muted kind of statements. And I thought, God, that's different. Because I'd never experienced anything like that before, ever.
Fascinating.
And it really was.
Movement, beauty, space. That's extract one.
That's right. Well, the last track, the third track on the album, which is probably the most kind of ethereal, if you like, the most Zen-like, which is why I've called it Movement, Beauty, Space. And this one lasts about 12 minutes. So these are just, there's going to be two extracts from it.
Great.
Each one about 2.5 minutes.
Right. Right, we're back. Last extract. So first, where can people find out what you're doing?
Well, we've got the Bandcamp page, but that's about it. But you have to go on my Bandcamp page. I don't know whether Mike's put it on his, but it's certainly on mine, which is just Dave Nock. You can go on there.
Go on there.
And the next time we're playing live is at Claptrap next month, but I forgot the date. But
it's going to be on a Sunday.
Check out
So
Claptrap.
it's a Sunday shenanigans. So
turn up on a Sunday. We'll be there one of the Sundays.
Taverners is playing at the next Crafty Jar, which is the 16th of April. 13th of April, between 5 and 8. So come down to the Crafty Jar next to the music shop, Lower High Street. We've got about 3 minutes. Can you improvise for 3 minutes on something? Yeah.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
Watch the clock. I'll signal when you're getting near. So.
Okay.
Where you go. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Movement Space, Xtra 2. Well done, fantastic.
Thank you.